Hey, folks, we're back. And yeah, to Alan's point, there's this company called Creo. I think that's how you say that. And they make a CRM, and they may not be the most widely used CRM out there, but they launched a bunch of AI agents this week. And interestingly enough, they're not charging extra for these AI agents. They're basically saying AI agents are going to be a feature and not an add-on. And one of the issues we have been seeing out there is every vendor seems to show up with some sort of AI capability that they want everybody to pay extra for. And it seems like, well, maybe that's not going to hold, because at some point somebody has to be the startup that's trying to take out the incumbent. And one way to do that is to not charge for AI agents. So, Alan, is this the market at work or what?
I think you've got to look at this in context of the world, Mike. This is a company, they're not Salesforce. They're not Siebel. They're not, they have a nice CRM. It's kind of one of the scrappy competitors. And you're going up against an 800-pound gorilla, excuse me, who's promising to, have tens of thousands of agents available for every purpose under the sun. And so how do you counter that? And since time memorial, the small guy says, I got a great idea. Let's give it away for free and we'll make it up on volume. I don't know how successful a strategy that is, but at some point, agents do become commoditized and do become part of the offering, and they will be free. At least a base set of them will. And maybe, much like open source, you'll have sort of an open core of free agents, but higher functioning ones will cost a little bit more money. I don't know. That's what I think.
I think part of the exercise here is that the margins on software are pretty good still, and I can hide the cost of the AI agent in those margins and still make a nice piece of change. And I'm just going to be curious, but I think that this is going to be a trend across the board. I think every other ISV is going to come to the same conclusion. I think for enterprises, AI may still be expensive because I got to get the GPUs, but I think the cost of those GPUs is going to be buried into the license somewhere now. Will the core license go up sometime to account for that? Maybe to maintain their previous, I don't know, Alan, what are the margins on ISVs these days? I seem to remember it was somewhere in the realm of 50%.
Net, triple net you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And and it depends. With SaaS involved, Fred's probably better suited to talk about that than me. He lives it. But it, there's certainly margin there to put it in. Let's put it that way. So, we inevitably, look, this is going to happen. It is just a little earlier than I thought it would. But it also remains to be seen, are these agents real? Are people going to use them? What's going on with them? And I don't mean agents in general, though I might be talking about that as well. But certainly in terms of the ones that Creo here is rolling out.
I'm kind of looking forward to using AI agents because there are just all kinds of tasks in my daily life that I just scratch my head about and go, why am I doing this? I'll give you my pet peeve example. So, you write something in Google Docs or in Word, and then, you got to load it up into WordPress. I'm like, isn't there an agent that could just do that? Just kind of like take that little thing and just, because it probably sucks up about, 2 or 3 minutes, but it's just annoying as hell.
But so here's my pet peeve. Is that an AI agent or is it an API call? That, I mean, didn't we have that kind of functionality already?
I think there's a couple of interesting things about what these guys are trying to do here. The first of which is they say, we're going to allow you to build your own AI agents. And the second thing is, we'll let you choose your LLMs. That's a provocative thing. If you're doing that kind of work, you don't want to be held accountable to, which model has the highest risk. I have this custom model built for my things. This to me seems to strike at the heart of people that are doing an awful lot of AI work and have built things internally and are discerning members and say, hey, cool. I can implement what I have here already, and it is, I think, Shimmy, as you said, it is provocative to say we can encapsulate this in our SaaS budget, right? That margin, everybody that would be a funder, founder, or an investor in a SaaS project would say, if you're making less than 80%, right, you're probably doing the wrong things. So there's definitely room for that. I think the interesting part here that I still feel is pretty unknown is, what do those ballooning costs look like? This is a really big gamut to run here. If you're going to suggest you can use any model, and build your own agents, that could be very, very expensive. It could be super optimized by people that know what they're doing. It's pretty cool to see. I like the democratization of it for sure. It'll be interesting to see.
But Fred, to your point, you look at like Amazon Q. From what I remember, you could plug your own LLM. You could plug different LLMs into that. Mike, John, who is Einstein? Is that Salesforce or one of the other big guys?
Salesforce.
Yes. Einstein also allows you to plug multiple LLMs into the back end of it. So again, I think this is Creo trying to match up against the 800-pound gorilla that they compete against every day.
So, to Fred's point, I think, are folks out there building AI agents that are just going to wind up being free pieces of applications that I license? And, it feels like we're about to have this classic Bill versus buy conversation, Fred.
I think there's a whole suite of folks that, in order for people to adopt their technology, the latest thing is to build a plugin for their agent, this MCP, that agent, so on. But it remains to be seen if those are going to be widely used, right? To Alan's point earlier, we kind of just exchanged a way to interacting with, words, what we used to do with APIs. Is it better? Is it worse? Does it make more sense? Do you get the right answers? I mean, still to be determined, but I think everybody feels as though in the fleet of agents, I must have an agent that someone can interact with in my technology stack. So vendors, I think, are going to rush to continue to do this. And there's lots of public agents today, and there's lots of public MCP servers and all of the things that go with it. But is that a trend? Does that sort of top out? Do we get back to, hey, those things are probably not adhering to most of the general principles of security anyway, right? Is it better practice? Do you get more out of it? Like, what's the value prop there? And I think those are the questions it's fresh snow. So I don't know if we're going to see that for a little bit.
Another lesson I've learned in years in the tech world is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'm not talking about agents being free. I'm talking about, creating an agent to scratch every itch that you may have. It may not make sense to do that. And so, I think we're going to go through a period where we are going to try to scratch every itch. But eventually, when the cost of AI gets factored into these things, even at a B2C level, you're going to do it where it makes sense, not for every thing under the sun. And that's, again, following a pattern that I've seen over 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm. And the temptation among some of these tech companies, when I talk to them, and Cisco execs said this, that they're the thought that like 75% of your time is wasted on, like 44% of that time is wasted on repetitive tasks, like or 31% is in meetings. So they're looking at this scope of 75% of what workers do throughout their career can be replaced in some manner or form by AI agent. And that's kind of where they're coming from. It is overkill, and it will not go to that percentage for all of us, but that's how they think, I believe.
Yeah, that's just, we go bathtub curve, right? You spend the first, 35% of your time trying to figure out how to munge the data, execute some stuff, and then, the last 35% of your time or 40% of your time trying to figure out how to interpret it. I'm not sure, right, that whole class of line of thinking makes sense in this case, but I think the 0 to 1 problem gets an awful lot shorter for sure, so that you can figure out how to flatten that first part. But the latter part of determining whether or not that's valuable and why it matters, I mean, still question marks there.
I would say one thing on behalf of the humble API: doesn't tend to hallucinate.
No, for sure not. But, we'll see how it comes out. All right. Let's take a break on that one. We're going to come back and talk about our third segment today. It's a Thin Lizzy song, Jailbreak. You're watching Tech Strong Gang.